Okay, so here's my lecture on some fallacies. A fallacy is an error in logic or in reasoning. Now, the intentional use of a fallacy is called sophistry, right? So, by comparison, like someone could make a logical error without realizing it, but when someone knowingly uses faulty logic because they expect that it will work psychologically to manipulate someone or to trick someone into believing something, that's sophistry. By analogy, there's a difference between someone uttering a statement which they believe, but which, unbeknownst to them, happens to be false. Maybe they learned it from a teacher or something like that. They believe that it's true. There's something about Christopher Columbus or something, And someone who knows that a sentence is false and uses it to mislead someone else intentionally deceiving them, right? So not all false statements are lies in that sense, and not all fallacies are sophistries, okay? All right. So my first fallacy that I want to talk about is called leading question. So the classic example of this, and you're probably already familiar with, is if you were in a kind of court of law and the judge instructed you as the witness, after you tried to get around answering certain questions, just answer the question yes or no. It's either a yes or a no. And the question is, have you stopped beating your wife yet? So now, obviously, if you think about yes or no, if you say yes, that means implicitly that it was a time when you were beating your wife, and now is not any longer that time, right? You've stopped beating your wife implies that you were once beating her. On the other hand, if you say no, that implies that you are continuing to beat your wife. You have not stopped beating your wife yet, right? So that's we call that a leading question. And that example is pretty obvious, but sometimes there are questions that are not so obvious. And it might not even be the case that someone instructs you that you must answer either yes or no. But even if you are under oath in a court of law and you are ordered to answer with a yes or no to a question that you find to be a leading question, I would just say that question does not admit of a yes or no answer, right? Don't fall for the trap. Or the answer should be, I never began beating my wife, or I don't have a wife, whatever, right? Okay, so that's the fallacy of leading question. Next fallacy is false dichotomy or false dilemma. So there may be some circumstances or situations where there's only two options and no other options, and that would be a genuine dilemma or dichotomy. If you take any statement, right, it's either true or false, right? Any meaningful statement. Well, there may be some kind of exceptions in the world of paradoxical philosophical logic, but generally speaking, any statement, whatever it is, it's either true or false, right? You have to pick one or the other, right? However, you might not know whether it's true or false. So even though maybe, let's say, kind of metaphysically, in terms of the reality status of that, the claim that the sentence makes, it either exists or it doesn't exist, what the statement asserts, in which case it's either true or false. That may be true of any statement, but that doesn't entail that you know what the truth value or the true or false value of the statement is. So it could be true, it could be false. even if it can't be neither or both, that does not entail that you know which one it is. So the answer for you might be, is it true or false? It has to be one or the other. You could say, don't know. That's the third option. That's maybe, right? And like in some circumstances, you might have two friends who are in a heated battle, and you're friends with both of them, and both of them insist that you must take sides, and that if you don't take a side, you're implicitly on the other person's side, right? Um, and both of them swear that they will unfriend you if you do not take sides. So you'll either lose at least one of them if you take sides with the other, or you'll lose both of them if you don't. Well, you still, like they can control, they choose to control the outcome on their end. That doesn't mean that you're choosing one friend over the other. If you make a choice which they determine, means you will lose both of them, right? Okay, so that's the fallacy of false dilemma. I remember when I was an undergraduate, I was at a philosophy club Christmas party at Brooklyn College, and one of the adjunct professors there asked one of my colleague students, I was a student, we were debating politics, and I forget who was running for president at the time or whatever it was. I don't remember. There was some kind of political situation, and the professor said to the student, look, suppose I said to you, because the student was trying to wiggle out of it, saying, I'm not a member of a political party, I'm an independent, or whatever it was, and the professor was trying to press him, do you lean Democrat or Republic, right? And the student was just wiggling out of it, and the professor said, suppose I said, either you were a Democrat or you're a Republican, there are no other options. What would you say? Right? What if I said, I have to be either a Democrat or a Republican? I have to be one or the other, not both, not neither. It's got to be one or the other. What would you say to that? And the student said, I'd say you're an ass. Right? So, oh, pardon me, I'm getting a little text message over here. I have to go pick somebody up, and I think maybe just give me a moment. I apologize for this. Okay, parental responsibility. I have to go pick somebody up at the bus stop. Otherwise, I'll be standing there out in the dark at night. And so that's the funny joke about false dilemma. There are much more complicated ones. All right, straw man. A straw man argument is when someone makes an argument and their critic interprets what they said in the worst possible way, or in a very bad way, or distorts what they say, or mischaracterizes their view, so that they can then go on and easily critique the mischaracterized view. It's kind of like saying something like, oh, you're saying that this really stupid thing, which sounds like what you said, but I'm depicting it as even stupider than what you said. And then I go, look how stupid that is. That's absurd, right? That's the basic idea of a straw man, right? You are creating an imposter substitute for the real man and then beating up this man made out of straw. It's like punching a poster of Mike Tyson and saying that you beat him up or something like that. You did not really beat up the real man. So let me give you an example. Suppose somebody says, I think that hierarchies of power and authority, like a patriarchy, where the men are in dominant positions in society, that they can be fair. That there's nothing necessarily unfair about patriarchies or hierarchies of any kind per se. It depends on whether or not the hierarchy functions and is structured based on things that are fair or that are unfair, right? So if a hierarchy is based on merit, competence, proven skill, etc., right? Then the hierarchy is fair. So I think I might have to check I really apologize for this. Okay, so I'm going to have to cut this one short after this fallacy. So if somebody's making an argument like that, and then somebody says, oh, well, actually, it's a relatively famous fellow right now, Jordan Peterson, who makes that argument. And then his critics say, oh, he's a defender of the white supremacist, misogynist, white male patriarchy, right? He's a racist, he's a misogynist, he's this, he's that, right? And like, how could anyone defend like a Nazi patriarchy or something like that? And then they go and show why all the reasons why you should reject a Nazi, racist, totalitarian, fascist, misogynist patriarchy that's abusive and all that. And then, well, that's not really what the original argument was. That's a straw man argument. Okay, so those were three fallacies: leading question, false dilemma, and straw man. And we'll be back for more at another time.